Listen carefully because this is the part nobody wants to hear but everybody needs. You're not losing in life because you're dumb. You're not losing because the universe hates you or because somebody else had a better start. You're losing because you can't stay consistent. That's it. That's the disease. That's the cancer of mediocrity. Everybody can start something. Everybody can get motivated for a day. Everybody can post one video, go to the gym once, start one project, write down one goal. But consistency is what separates the weak from the dangerous. And I'm here to tell you that until you learn to hammer the same nail over and over and over again, you'll never build anything worth standing on. Consistency is brutal. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. It's not the Instagram highlight reel. It's waking up at 6 when you don't want to. It's training when you're tired. It's working on your craft when everyone else is out partying. It's saying no to short-term pleasure so you can eat long-term victory. That's why people avoid it. They want the outcome without the process. They want the results without the grind. But life doesn't care what you want. Life only respects consistency. Think about the gym. Everyone knows the guy who shows up for January. He's there with brand new shoes, new headphones, posting selfies in the mirror. He's loud for 2 weeks. Then February comes and he's gone. That guy doesn't transform. But the quiet guy who just shows up every single day, never posts, never brags, just works. 6 months later, he's unrecognizable. That's consistency. That's how you turn into a monster. You don't need to be gifted genetically. You don't need to be the smartest or the fastest. If you're consistent, you'll crush people who are more talented than you but too lazy to stick with it. Money works the same way. Everybody wants to be rich, but nobody wants to be consistent with discipline. They'll start a side hustle. They'll try something for 2 weeks. The money doesn't flood in instantly, so they quit. And then they wonder why they're broke. Rich people aren't magic. They're consistent. They put in the work every single day, even when they didn't feel like it. While you're binge watching Netflix, they're stacking bricks. While you're wasting hours scrolling, they're building systems. They didn't win because of luck. They won because consistency compounds. You need to understand the compounding effect of consistency. One push up won't change your life. One workout won't change your body. One disciplined day won't make you rich. But string together 365 disciplined days, and you'll be a different human being. The problem is people can't handle the delayed gratification. They want results now. They want the instant dopamine hit. And when it doesn't come, they fold. That's why so many stay weak, broke, and average. They can't handle the boring, repetitive grind of consistency. But that grind is where the transformation happens. Think about a fighter. He doesn't just train when he feels like it. He trains every single day, even when he's sore, even when he's tired, even when he hates it. That's how he builds the edge. That's how he walks into the ring knowing his opponent hasn't put in the same work. Consistency gives you confidence. When you know you've done the work every day, you don't need motivation. You've got certainty. You've built proof with your actions. Most of you live like emotional children. If you feel good, you work. If you don't feel good, you quit. That's why your life looks the way it does. A monster doesn't care about feelings. A monster works regardless. Consistency means you detach from emotions and attach to discipline. You stop asking yourself, do I feel like it? And you start saying, this is who I am. This is what I do. That's the switch. That's when you become dangerous. Let me give you an example. Imagine 2 men starting the same level, same resources, same everything. One man works hard for a week, then takes 3 weeks off. The other man works a little bit every single day without fail. After a year, the first man has almost nothing to show. The second man has built something unstoppable. Multiply that over 5 years, 10 years. One is still dreaming, the other is a monster. That's not talent, that's consistency. Even in relationships, consistency is everything. People think love is about grand gestures, about passion, about the honeymoon phase. No, it's about showing up consistently, being dependable, being disciplined enough to maintain what you built. Most people can fall in love. Few can stay in love because they can't be consistent. They get bored. They get distracted. They chase novelty. That's why marriages fall apart. That's why families collapse. Consistency is the glue in everything. And here's the reality. The world doesn't reward starters. The graveyard is full of people who started. The world rewards finishers, and you only finish if you're consistent. Nobody cares that you went to the gym for a week. Nobody cares that you started a business for a month. Nobody cares that you had a great idea once. What matters is we can show after years of consistency. That's the difference between clowns and killers. You need to train your brain like a machine. Stop thinking in terms of mood. Mood is irrelevant. You don't brush your teeth only when you're in the mood, do you? No. You do it every day because it's a non-negotiable. That's how you need to treat your goals. Non-negotiable. You wake up and you execute. You do it when you're tired. You do it when you're angry. You do it when you're broken. That's consistency. That's how you transform. People always ask me, what's the secret? They want some magic formula. There is none. The secret is repetitive. The secret is doing the same damn thing every single day until it becomes who you are. You want 6-pack abs? Lift weights, eat clean, stay consistent for years. You want money? Work, save, invest, build, stay consistent for years. You want mastery? Practice, fail, repeat, stay consistent for years. That's it. That's the secret you don't want to hear because it requires patience and discipline. Here's another example. Picture water dripping on a rock. 1 drop does nothing. 10 drops do nothing. But 1,000 drops, 10,000 drops, the rock starts to wear down. That's consistency. That's how weak things become strong. And that's how strong things fall apart when they lack it. You are either the water that keeps dripping or the rock that crumbles. That's the power you hold. Consistency also exposes pretenders. Anyone can fake motivation for a week, but consistency exposes the truth. Over time, the fakers vanish. The real ones remain. You can look around after a year and see who was serious and who was lying. That's why I trust consistency more than words, more than talent, more than passion. Consistency never lies. If you want to turn into a monster of success, you need to kill the old version of yourself who quit whenever life got tough. That version of you is weak, pathetic, and holding you back. Monsters are forged in repetition, in routine, in relentless action. Every single day you show up, you kill weakness a little more. Every single day you show up, you build strength a little more. Over time, the gap becomes massive. Now let's get brutally real. Most of you will not do this. You'll nod your head, you'll feel motivated, you'll get hyped, and then you'll go back to being inconsistent. That's why most people never escape mediocrity. They want the outcome, but they can't commit to the process. They want to eat like kings, but live like slaves. And life doesn't reward that. Life rewards the monster who shows up again and again, regardless of feelings. The problem with most people is they think success is about luck. They think it's about being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right people, or getting some golden opportunity handed to them. That's loser talk. That's the language of people who want excuses instead of responsibility. The truth is, success is about building yourself into someone so consistent, so disciplined, so relentless that opportunities can't ignore you. You don't wait for luck. You manufacture inevitability through consistency. Look at any champion in any field. Do you think they became elite by accident? Do you think they just woke up one morning and suddenly had the skill, the body, the bank account? No, they showed up every day. They trained when no one was watching. They repeated the basics until the basics became lethal. And while the rest of the world was distracted, inconsistent, and undisciplined, they built themselves into monsters. Consistency is the foundation of identity. You can tell me who you think you are. You can scream affirmations in the mirror. You can talk about your dreams all day, but your consistency proves the truth. If you're inconsistent, you're a liar. You're lying to yourself about who you are and what you want. Your actions show your reality. If you go to the gym once a week, you're not a gym guy. If you write once a month, you're not a writer. If you hustle only when you feel inspired, you're not an entrepreneur. Consistency defines you. Not words, not thoughts, not dreams. Action repeated daily, that's identity. This is why most people hate consistency, because it's a mirror. It shows them the truth. They can't hide behind excuses when their daily actions reveal they're weak. They say they want success, but they're not consistent enough to deserve it, and they know it. So instead of changing, they hide. They numb themselves with entertainment, with distractions, with substances. They surround themselves with other inconsistent losers so they feel normal. They avoid the mirror of consistency because the reflection is ugly. But here's the good news. Consistency is also the weapon that can save you. If you decide today that from this moment on you're going to execute daily, you don't need to be special. You don't need to have some massive breakthrough. You just need to be relentless. If you stay consistent for 6 months, you will destroy your old self. You'll look back and not recognize the man in the mirror. And if you stay consistent for 5 years, you'll build a life you can't even imagine right now. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine 2 men learning sales. The first man studies sales for 2 days, practices a bit, then gets discouraged when he doesn't close immediately. He quits, goes back to his old habits. The second man makes a commitment every single day. He's going to make 20 calls. Doesn't matter if he feels good or not, he makes those calls. After 1 month, he's better. After 3 months, he's dangerous. After a year, he's untouchable. What separated them? Not talent, not intelligence, not luck. Consistency. Another example, fitness. Everyone wants abs, everyone wants muscles, but most people can't be consistent with diet and training. They'll eat clean for 3 days, then binge. They'll train hard for a week, then disappear for 2. That's why they stay soft. But the man who shows up every day, keeps his diet clean every day, even when it's boring, even when he's craving, even when it's inconvenient, that man transforms. And when people see his body, they think it's genetics. No, it's consistency. Genetics might give you a head start, but consistency wins the marathon. Consistency also builds resilience. Life will hit you. Business will fail. Relationships will end. You'll get sick. You'll get tired. You'll face setbacks. But if you're consistent, you don't break because you've built the habit of showing up no matter what. You don't rely on perfect circumstances. You're used to working in chaos. You're used to grinding when it's hard. That makes you unbreakable. Think about soldiers. They don't train only when the sun is shining and the conditions are perfect. They train in mud, in rain and snow, in pain, because they know the enemy won't wait for a sunny day. That's how you need to train your life. Stop waiting for the perfect time, the perfect feeling, the perfect situation. That's weakness. Consistency means you go to war daily, regardless of the battlefield. The reason consistency is so powerful is because it rewires your brain. At first, it's painful. Your mind screams, I don't want to do this. But every time you override that voice and take action, you weaken the resistance. Over weeks and months, your brain adjusts. What was once hard becomes normal. What was once impossible becomes automatic. And when consistency is your baseline, you become lethal, because now discipline feels natural. The things that break average people don't even faze you. Let's talk about money again, because everyone wants it. People dream of wealth, but they're inconsistent with their habits. They'll budget 1 month and blow it the next. They'll save for a week and then spend recklessly. They'll start a business idea and abandon it after the first obstacle. That's why they're broke. Meanwhile, the consistent man doesn't chase hype. He saves every month. He invests every month. He builds his business every day. And because he doesn't stop, he compounds over time. He becomes rich while the inconsistent ones complain about how unfair life is. Consistency is also the cure to fear. Most people are terrified of failure, rejection, embarrassment. That fear paralyzes them. But when you act consistently, fear loses its grip. You fail so many times that it becomes normal. You face rejection so often that it stops hurting. You build calluses on your soul. And suddenly, what used to scare you doesn't even register. Consistency hardens you into a monster. I'll give you another brutal example. Imagine a man learning to fight. He trains twice a month. He's scared of getting hit, so he avoids sparring. He never improves. He stays weak. Then imagine another man who spars every week, takes hits, gets bruised, keeps showing up. After a year, he's dangerous. After 5 years, he's lethal. Consistency beat fear out of him. It made him sharp, confident, unstoppable. This is why most people never achieve mastery. They quit right before the breakthrough. They stop when it's still hard, when it still feels awkward, when it's still painful. But if they had just stayed consistent a little longer, they would have broken through the wall. That's why consistency is more important than talent. Talent gets bored. Consistency wins. Understand this, your competition is already weak. Most people are inconsistent. They'll quit after a few weeks. That's your advantage. If you can simply outlast them, you win. You don't need to be extraordinary. You just need to be relentless. Show up longer than everyone else, and eventually, you're the last one standing. That's what makes you a monster. And let's be honest, consistency is not sexy. Nobody claps for you when you wake up early every day. Nobody applauds your discipline when you say no to junk food. Nobody cares that you grind in silence. But that's the point. Consistency is invisible until it becomes undeniable. At first, nobody notices. Then suddenly, everyone notices. You transform quietly and then explode publicly. That's how it works. You need to decide if you want to be the guy who talks or the guy who proves. The guy who talks is inconsistent. He has big dreams, big words, but no action. The guy who proves is consistent. He lets his results do the talking. Which one are you? Consistency also requires sacrifice. You can't be consistent with everything. You have to choose. If you want to be consistent in the gym, you sacrifice parties. If you want to be consistent in business, you sacrifice comfort. If you want to be consistent in growth, you sacrifice laziness. That's the price. And most people aren't willing to pay it. But monsters pay. Monsters sacrifice. That's why they win. Now let's go deeper. Consistency is about standards. Most people have low standards. They accept mediocrity. They accept being average. They accept excuses. That's why they're inconsistent. Because they don't demand more from themselves. If you raise your standards, consistency becomes natural. You stop tolerating weakness. You stop allowing yourself to quit. You set the bar high and refuse to go below it. That's how monsters are born. Every area of your life is a reflection of your consistency. Your body shows it. Your bank account shows it. Your skills show it. Your relationships show it. You can't hide. Consistency leaves fingerprints everywhere. And if you don't like what you see in your life, it's because your consistency has been garbage. Fix your consistency. Fix your life. Consistency is the great separator. It's what divides men who dream from men who dominate. You can have vision, talent, resources, and opportunities, but without consistency, they vanish into nothing. Consistency is the multiplier that turns small daily actions into unstoppable momentum. And if you don't understand this, you'll keep wondering why your life looks the same year after year while other men pass you, crush you, and leave you behind. The truth is, most people sabotage themselves because they can't stay consistent past the first wave of excitement. They get hyped, motivated, inspired, and they start. But the second it gets boring, the second it gets repetitive, they stop. And that's why they lose. Because greatness is hidden in boredom. Excellence is buried in repetition. Mastery is forged in the dull, unsexy grind that nobody sees. You think Kobe Bryant loved shooting 1,000 jump shots every day? Probably not. But he did it anyway because he understood consistency transforms you into something otherworldly. If you want to be a monster of success, you need to rewire your brain to love consistency. Not tolerate it, not force it, love it. Love the grind, love the repetition, love the boredom. Because you know boredom is where you separate from the weak. Everyone can show up when it's new. Everyone can show up when it's exciting. But only monsters show up when it's boring, when it's exhausting, when it feels endless. That's where success is earned. Let's look at a concrete example. Imagine two men starting businesses. The first man is obsessed with novelty. He starts one business, works on it for 3 months, gets bored, starts another, gets bored, starts another. He never gives anything the consistency it needs to grow. He stays broke. The second man picks one business and stays consistent for years. He works through the boring phases, the setbacks, the failures, the doubts. Over time, he builds momentum. His brand grows. His clients multiply. His income compounds. He becomes successful. Not because he's smarter, not because he's luckier, but because he stayed consistent long enough to win. That's what you need to understand. Success isn't about doing something extraordinary once. It's about doing something ordinary relentlessly until it becomes extraordinary. 1,000 push-ups done one time won't change your life. But 100 push-ups done daily for a year will. Reading 100 books in a month won't change you as reading consistently for years will. Success is built by small actions, repeated endlessly, until the world bends to your will. Consistency also builds trust. People watch you whether you realize it or not. Your family, your friends, your colleagues, they notice if you're consistent, if you're the man who always shows up, always delivers, always executes. People trust you. They respect you. They want to follow you. But if you're inconsistent, you're unreliable. Nobody respects inconsistency. Nobody admires a man who starts and quits. Consistency makes you dependable. Dependability makes you powerful. But let's talk about the dark side. Consistency is not always positive. You can be consistently weak. You can be consistently lazy. You can be consistently mediocre. And guess what? That's why so many people are stuck. They are consistent, but consistent in failure. They consistently eat trash, consistently procrastinate, consistently waste time. And that consistency destroys them just as surely as discipline builds you. That's why you have to take responsibility, because every day you are consistent at something. The question is, are you consistent at building your dreams or consistent at killing them? You want to know the difference between a man who is everything and a man who is nothing. Look at their habits. One man consistently invests in his health, his wealth, his growth. The other consistently invests in distractions, excuses, and comfort. Over years, those choices compound into two completely different lives. That's how consistency turns you into either a monster of success or a prisoner of mediocrity. Here's something you don't want to hear. Consistency is painful. It requires discipline when you're tired. It requires sacrifice when you want comfort. It requires grinding when nobody notices, and that pain never fully goes away. But that pain is the price of greatness, and the man who embraces it becomes unstoppable. Everyone else spends their life avoiding pain, chasing pleasure, running from struggle. That's why they stay weak. The man who embraces the pain of consistency owns the future. Think about athletes. The difference between a professional and an amateur is consistency. Amateurs train when they feel like it. Professionals train every day, rain or shine, sick or healthy, happy or sad. That's why amateurs dream while professionals dominate. And this is true in every area: business, fitness, relationships, skills. The monster is the man who refuses to miss. Let me tell you a story. There was a boxer who wasn't the most talented. He didn't have the fastest hands or the strongest punch, but he trained harder than anyone. He was consistent every day for years. And eventually, he beat fighters who were more gifted than him. How? Because consistency outlasted talent. Talent is fragile. Talent fades when pressure comes. But consistency builds armor. It builds endurance. It makes you dangerous because you can't be worn down. This is what separates the average from the elite. Average people stop when they're tired. Elite people stop when they're done. Average people give up when results are slow. Elite people keep going because they trust the process. Average people chase motivation. Elite people build discipline. That's the difference. Consistency. Another example, relationships. Everyone wants loyalty, trust, love. But those things are built by consistency. If you're consistent in your respect, consistent in your effort, consistent in your honesty, you build trust. But if you're inconsistent, unreliable, unpredictable, you destroy relationships. Consistency creates stability. Stability creates strength. Strength creates longevity. That's true in love, business partnerships, friendships, everything. Now let's talk about competition. The beautiful thing about consistency is it makes competition irrelevant. Most people will quit long before they get close to mastery. They'll give up when it's hard, when it's boring, when it's slow. That's your advantage. If you refuse to quit, if you stay consistent no matter what, you'll outlast everyone. And eventually, you'll stand alone at the top. Not because you were the most gifted, but because you refuse to stop. Consistency also compounds. The first few weeks, the results are invisible. The first few months, the progress is slow. That's where most people quit. But if you keep stacking days, weeks, months, suddenly momentum kicks in. Suddenly everything accelerates. Suddenly what felt impossible becomes effortless. That's the compound effect of consistency. It looks small at first, then it becomes unstoppable. The man who is consistent for a year is dangerous. The man who is consistent for 5 years is unstoppable. The man who is consistent for a decade, he becomes a legend. That's how powerful consistency is. It's time plus repetition plus discipline. That's the formula for greatness. And anyone can access it. But almost nobody does, because almost nobody is willing to endure the grind long enough. And that's why consistency turns you into a monster. Because when you master consistency, you master life. You don't rely on motivation. You don't rely on inspiration. You don't wait for permission. You simply act every single day relentlessly, without compromise. And that turns you into a force of nature. When people look at you, they'll think you're superhuman. They'll think you're lucky. They'll think you're gifted. But you'll know the truth. You're not superhuman. You're just consistent. You're just relentless. You're just disciplined. And because of that, you've become a monster of success. So the choice is yours. You can keep living like everyone else, inconsistent, weak, distracted, broke. Or you can commit to consistency and build yourself to something terrifyingly powerful. You can build a body that intimidates, a bank account that dominates, a mindset that cannot be broken. You can become the man people look at and say, he's different, he's untouchable, he's unstoppable. And all it takes is showing up every single day without fail. That's the truth nobody wants to hear, but everybody needs. Consistency is the ultimate weapon. It doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter how weak you are right now. If you stay consistent, you will transform. You will grow. You will dominate. You will become the monster of success.